Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupaswarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakhyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Namah Pankajanaභaya Namah Pankajamaline Namah Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajanghreye Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Gobrahmanahitaya Cha Jagadhitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Namassarvebhyo Sarvesham Krite Swagatam. Welcome to this class. So, it's a narrative of a king. So there was this king who was quite wealthy, but he had a desire to have more wealth. All the time he was thinking of expanding his material empire, having more riches, more jewels, more gold. So, kings have gurus, teachers. So he was so bothered by not being able to earn more. So he went to his guru and he said, Maharaj, I have a problem. I want to know how I can expand my wealth. I don't know how to do it. The guru said, you already have so much. You have much more than you can actually enjoy, but what is the problem? So then the king said, I know, Maharaj, I have a lot of wealth, but still my mind is troubling me. I'm not peaceful. I need more. I can't tolerate the fact that my wealth is not growing. So his guru gave him an idea. He said, look, the best way to get wealth is to pray to God, because he is the source of all wealth. Everything belongs to him. So I'll teach you a method. Pray to him, and when he comes, you can ask him. So the king followed his guru's advice, and God came before him. This, what do you want? I want more wealth. How much more do you want? Well, I just want everything to be golden. Everything should become gold. Whatever I touch, it should become gold. Tatastu. So having said this, God vanished, and the king's daughter came running to him. So much love for his daughter, he embraced his daughter. Immediately she turned into gold. So at one moment his daughter was standing in front of him, the next moment a golden statue was there. He said, oh, what happened? It's become gold. So he went on doing different things, and whatever he would touch would become gold. He would touch his food, it would become gold. He can't eat it. Touched his wife, she became gold. Everything became gold. He realized suddenly that he had no one to talk to. He could not anymore live the life that he was living. So then he understood what his guru was trying to tell him. You already have so much. Why do you want to have more? So he prayed to God again. God came back and God said, now have you learned your lesson? Okay, so the point is that we look for happiness, but where do we look for happiness? We look outward. In the last session, we discussed the difference between Atma and Anatma. Atma is the self. We are the Atma. Each one of us is the Atma. Anatma is matter. Because of our own misunderstanding, lack of knowledge, or ignorance, we think that our happiness lies in matter. Whereas the Bhagavad-Gita teaches us that the happiness that we are actually entitled to, our genuine happiness, lies inside us. And that is in the Atma. The Atma, inside the Atma is the Paramatma, the supreme conscious being to whom all Atmas belong. All Atma is a part of Anatma. Beg your pardon, Paramatma. All the Atmas are a part of the Paramatma. So the inward focus, when we focus inside, which is what the Bhagavad Gita is trying to teach us, helps us to discover ourselves and discover the Paramatma who resides inside us. And in doing that, we discover our real happiness. The entire Gita is focused on telling us how to turn inwards and discover that real happiness. So the happiness we get in matter, like we discussed last time, is impure, it is limited, and it is temporary. Why is it impure? Because it is mixed with suffering. It is not pure. If it is pure, it would be only happiness. Our happiness is something that we experience when there is less suffering or when we alternate it with suffering. Otherwise, we don't realize what is happening. If somebody is not having any misery, then they will not know what happiness is. This happiness, this material happiness. When there is some misery and then that misery goes away, then we experience, oh, I became happy, right? That's the nature of this happiness, the material happiness. Whereas our internal happiness, the genuine happiness that we are entitled to and we are capable of experiencing, is pure. It does not depend on the absence of misery. It is uncontaminated. It is infinite in contrast to material happiness, which is limited, which is finite. I've given this example a number of times, and for the benefit of those who are coming for the first time, let's take a simple example of, let's say, eating gulab jamun. Okay, now gulab jamun is a very tasty item and all of us like it. So let's say somebody is very hungry. I'm very hungry and I want to eat something. Somebody gives me a nicely prepared gulab jamun. So delicious. I feel so happy about it. I have one, then I want one more. He gives me one more. I have that one. That one also gives me happiness. So like this, I have one more gulab jamun, and as I keep having more and more, at some point of time, the gulab jamun no longer is as tasty. The taste of the gulab jamun decreases with every additional gulab jamun. The marginal taste of gulab jamun is continuously decreasing, right? That is the nature of this happiness. There's a limit to which we can experience the happiness. Let us say I had only one gulab jamun that made me happy and I said, good, that's good for now. How long does it last? It will last for maybe half an hour. That contentment will last for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours. And then again, I want to have one more gulab jamun or something else. That happiness which I experienced is now a thing of the past. It is no longer there, right? So it's limited. It's temporary, limited in quantity and temporary along the time axis. It ends at some point of time. The happiness of the Atma, the pure happiness that we are entitled to experience, is pure. It is infinite, means there is no end to it. You can go on experiencing it and eternally experience it. There is no time limit to it, right? There's no limit in terms of quantity and in terms of time, and that's what the Gita is teaching us. So this is not the happiness that we ought to look for. This is the happiness that we ought to look for. That's what the Gita is trying to tell us. So how do our senses, the senses are the means through which we experience this world, right? The 5 senses that we have, the knowledge acquiring senses, jnanendriyas, then the 5 karmendriyas through which we do our activities. So the senses, they experience their happiness or they give us happiness through contact with the sense objects. But here in the Gita, as we have been discussing over these sessions, Sri Bhagavan wants us that indulgence in the senses, thinking that sense pleasure is the standard of happiness, leads to near-term pleasure, but long-term misery. In the immediate aftermath of contacting the senses with their sense objects, we experience happiness, right? Whatever kind, whether it's through food, like I just said, or hearing good music, or watching something nice, or sexual pleasure, whatever it is, in the immediate aftermath of that contact, there is pleasure, there is happiness. But it lasts for some time. But in the long term, it gives misery, as Sri Bhagavan says in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, the 22nd shloka, Yehi samsparshaja bhogaha dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddhaha. A person who is intelligent, buddha means an intelligent person, does not seek pleasure, na teshu ramate buddhaha, does not seek pleasure in this kind of happiness, which is born of the contact of the senses with the sense objects. Why? Because it's adyantavantaha. It has a beginning and an end. It begins and it ends. Begins and it ends. Yehi samsparshaja bhogaha. This kind of bhoga, this kind of happiness which is born of samsparshaja, which is born of the contact of the senses with the sense objects, is dukkha yonaya, he says. Not only is it temporary, if it's temporary, fine, then I can go on renewing it. I can keep doing contact with more objects over time. But there's one more important aspect to it, that it causes misery. Means it gives happiness at that point of time, but at a later point of time, with some time lag, it gives misery. It leads to suffering. A reaction comes for that, whatever form of happiness it is. So material happiness not only is limited and temporary, but it also has a reaction. It causes misery. Okay, so the suffering we see in this world, you can relate to that. It's because we want indulgence, we want happiness through indulgence, and we excessively indulge. At some later point of time, the suffering comes. And because we don't know the connection between the two, we just try to blame somebody for our suffering, or we try to resolve our suffering in some other way without realizing that the cause of that suffering was me only. My suffering was caused by me, not by anybody else. I did something. I sought some kind of enjoyment, and in the course of seeking that enjoyment, I probably also harmed somebody. That in turn will have its own reaction. Ultimately, the suffering is mine. Okay. In the 18th chapter, now adding to the same point, Sri Bhagavan in the 18th chapter distinguishes between 3 types of happiness: sattvic happiness, rajasic happiness, and tamasic happiness. So he says, Vishayendriya sanyogat yattad agre amrutopamam pariname vishamiva tatsukham rajasamsmitam. He says, the happiness born of the contact of the senses with the sense objects, Vishayendriya sanyogat. Vishaya Indriya Sanyoga. The contact of the Indriya with the Vishaya, Indriya Vishaya. Yattad agre amrutopamam. That which in the beginning feels like nectar, which feels amrita upamam, which feels like, which is nectarine in the beginning, agre. In the beginning, pariname vishamiva. In the end, it feels like poison. That which feels like nectar in the beginning, but feels like poison at the end. It begins in a nice way, but ultimately leads to regret, misery. That happiness is considered to be happiness under the influence of Rajoguna. We sought out. Earlier, Rajoguna is also explained in the 3rd chapter. Kama yesha krodha yesha Rajoguna samudbhavaha. Rajoguna is the one, the force, the particular, the nature of Prakriti, which drives us towards hankering for material happiness. Exactly the same point made here, that this kind of happiness looks like nectar in the beginning, but poison in the end. Now, in contrast to that, abstaining from material happiness, withdrawing from material happiness, or indulging in happiness in a very regulated manner, in a very controlled and regulated manner, leads to near-term misery. Means that abstention is not very pleasing. Sometime in the course of abstention, we may have to fast for several hours. Like on Ekadashi day, we fast, right? Or Shivaratri, we fast. There's a purpose behind the fasting. We intentionally take some short-term misery because we are practicing this abstention, but in the long term, it gives happiness. Not only in the very long term, just next day morning, once you break your fast, you feel so good. You feel the lightness of mind, the clarity of thought, you feel an internal happiness. I'm giving a very simple example of how even something as small as fasting, which everybody does, leads to a vindication of this truth, that it's near-term misery, but long-term happiness. And that is the point. That's the meaning of dharma. Dharma is that which is sustainable, that which sustains, that which is long-term, not that which is short-term, right? Adharma is short-term. So abstention, and for that Sri Bhagavan says in the 18th chapter, Yattadagre vishamiva pariname amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. He says, what appears like poison in the beginning, but like nectar in the end. It's nectarine in the end. Okay? Take the simple example of fasting, or the example of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, having a bath and doing meditation. Okay, it looks so painful to do that. When you hear about it, oh, who will do that? 4 o'clock is the time I go to sleep, right? So it looks like such a difficult thing to do. But if you actually do it, then you experience this happiness. Tat sukham satvikam proktam. That is satvika sukha. Satvika means sustainable, that which gives strength, that which gives long-term strength. It builds up our existence, sattva, existence, right? Proktam atma buddhi prasadajam says it gives happiness to the self and to the intelligence, nourishes the intelligence and gives happiness to the self. And this is what he encourages. The Gita is about this, looking for that sustainable happiness. So in the last two sessions, in fact, we were looking at these 6 themes and we covered 4 of those themes. So today we will focus on the last 2 themes, sthita-prajnata and lokasan, that is one theme, and Atma Sukha, which will pervade the entire topic. I began with that and I'm going to continue with that. So there is this point about sthita-prajnata, which is in the second chapter, and then reinforced again in the 3rd chapter, which is about karma yoga. How karma yoga, like we discussed last time, has got 3 pillars to it. First is, like Sri Bhagavan says in the 47th shloka of the 2nd chapter, karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sangostva karmani. Conscience should be the force for driving our duty, not the expectation of the fruit. The fruit will come or may not come sometimes. But regardless of that, we are driven by duty-mindedness. It's my duty to do this work. I have been assigned this work, or as I'm born as something. Maybe I am born as a Brahmana. In the traditional times, we went by our Varna. Born as a Brahmana, we would do Brahmana's work. Kshatriya would do Kshatriya's work. Today, that has broken apart, but we are now in some profession. For example, our nature, our inclinations led us to become something. Some of us have chosen the academic path. Some of us will go to an industry career. Whatever it is, ultimately, we end up with something called our duty. So doing that duty as duty for the sake of duty, saying that, okay, it's my duty. I am responsible for it. Conscience, I should do it sincerely. That thinking is the first pillar of karma yoga. Not thinking of the happiness that comes because of doing it. The second pillar is the understanding, very important understanding, that I am not the doer of action anyway. So I'm not entitled to the fruits anyway. It's not me who's doing it. I'm only thinking. This is very philosophical. So deep inside, in the 18th chapter, again, this is reinforced how Bhagavan says, Adhishthanam tatha karta, karanam cha prathak vidam, vividhascha prathak cheshtaha, daivam chaivatra panchamam. 5 factors which drive action, in that the Jivatma is not involved. The Paramatma is involved in that. Daivam chaivatra panchamam. And the Prakriti. So here in the 3rd chapter itself, Sri Bhagavan introduces that idea. He says, Prakritehe kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma karta ahamiti manyate. It is Prakriti which is doing everything, not you. You're only desiring. The Atma can desire, but the Atma doesn't do anything. The Atma has no control over matter. The matter is moved by Prakriti. So the understanding in Karma Yoga that there is a higher force called Prakriti, which is doing everything. It's not me who is doing anything. So thereby the justification for not hankering for the fruits. Right? If I was doing, then at least there is some justification for saying the fruit should be mine. But now anyway, I'm not doing. So there's no question of me demanding the fruits. And finally, whatever fruits come, Sri Bhagavan says, Mai sarvani karmani, the 3rd important pillar of Karma Yoga. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. So here Sri Bhagavan is telling Arjuna to get up and fight. He's sitting there and saying, no, I won't fight. I want to leave this battlefield and go. I would rather live by begging than kill my relatives. So he says, no, you're a Kshatriya. You've been assigned this duty, and this is a Dharma Yuddha. This Dharma Yuddha is meant to be fought by you. And they have all understood it. Your brothers have understood it. All the soldiers have understood it. Your enemies also have understood it. Why are you behaving like a fool? Get up. Mayi sarvani karmani. So don't take the result for yourself. Just offer that result to me. Offer everything to me. Whatever you get, the punya that you get, offer it to me. I will take away your pap also. There'll be no pap in this because you're offering it to me. So three pillars of karma yoga. One is the conscious driven nature. The second is the acknowledgement that I am not the doer. And the third is that everything is offered to Sri Bhagavan. Bhagavad Arpita. That's why Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti terms karma yoga as Bhagavad Arpita Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is how it's meant to be done. And so I have listed a few factors which are essential elements of karma yoga. First is the person who is doing karma yoga does the work with the love for the work itself, not in anticipation of the returns that he will get from the work, right? He does it with sincerity and conscientiousness. He's highly focused. There's clear focus on the goal. Sometimes people misunderstand when we say that you should not hanker for the results. Then if I don't think about the result, then how will I focus? No, they are two different things. Hankering for result is a different thing. Focusing on the result is a different thing. Focus on the result, because unless you focus on the result, you can't do your work sincerely. Minimize distractions. Be ready to make sacrifices. Any sincere effort, any sincere endeavor requires sacrifices. There is some pain involved. That pain in the short term will give happiness in the long run. Be consciously active, be continuously conscious of the active role of Sri Bhagavan and his Prakriti, like we just said, the two important pillars here. Practice lifestyle simplicity. Lifestyle simplicity is a part of our samskriti, regardless of whether you practice yoga or not. Our samskriti teaches us to be simple. Simplicity leads to happiness, right? And genuineness. Keep calm in failure and success of outcome. Treat them as the same. This is extremely important. You see, on the one hand, we teach people that, okay, there will be failure, but don't get stressed. That's very important. So a lot of stress comes because we did not get what we wanted. We become depressed. Now, the other side of this is success gets us excited. We celebrate, we over-celebrate, lose control ourselves. So both are bad. Both getting, disturbed in failure and getting excited in success. Both are considered to be bad. Both are reflections of attachment, of asakti. Anasakti, which is the essential element of karma yoga, is don't be disturbed by either. Their success or failure, treat them equally. The attachment is to the duty, not to the result. So regardless of whether it became a success or a failure, if you have done your duty sincerely, the success already is over in that. The tick mark for success, that's the tick mark, over. Already succeeded because I did whatever I could do. That's it. Okay, so that is karma yoga. And take responsibility for the outcome. It is not that, okay, because I am detached from failure, I don't care. It doesn't matter, it failed, so what? No. If it fails, if it succeeds, acknowledge that Sri Bhagavan did this. It's his credit. Credit goes to him. He is the doer. If it fails, take responsibility. Something wrong I did. Maybe I made a mistake. What was it that I did wrong? Next time I do this, I will do it carefully. That is karma yoga. Karma yoga takes responsibility for the actions. So detachment from the fruits does not mean that we are not responsible for the action. Duty involves being responsible for the outcomes along with the actions, both. Right? So this mentality, so the points I've listed here is my understanding of the mentality of karma yoga. And this mentality is captured in this word called sthita-prajnata. Okay, ta here added to indicate the nature of sthita-prajna. Sthita-prajna refers to the person who has got that nature. Sthita-prajna. Sthitaha or sthita-prajna yasya saha. So bahuvrihi samas. Means one whose wisdom is properly situated. Prajna means wisdom, true spiritual wisdom. Sthita-prajna means one whose wisdom is properly situated. So the practice of karma yoga fosters the mentality of sthita-prajnata. A person, when he starts doing karma yoga with this understanding, over time, over sufficient time, as he practices karma yoga, becomes a sthita-prajna. And as he becomes a sthita-prajna, that in turn nourishes his practice of karma yoga. They are mutually reinforcing. Both of them reinforce each other. So it's called a reinforcing loop in our language, right? They reinforce each other. Sthita-pragyata reinforces karma yoga. So a person who is sthita-prajna can do karma yoga better than a person who is not. So in the beginning, a person is not sthita-prajna. When he is attracted to karma yoga, then he is just starting out. He's a neophyte, he's a beginner. So he does things, and over time he becomes sthita-prajna. And as he becomes a sthita-prajna, he becomes even better at doing karma yoga. He becomes stronger and more focused, more inspired. His inspiration then is infectious. It spreads to others as well, right? So what are the qualities of a sthita-prajna? I listed a few based on the second and third chapters of Bhagavad-Gita. The sthita-prajna is one who sees the higher truth. He knows that I'm not the doer. This entire universe is not composed of just me and a few other people, but it's composed of much more than this. There is a supreme being. Sri Bhagavan exists and he is controlling everything. Everything belongs to him. So owing to seeing this larger picture of reality, he is able to free himself from desiring material enjoyment. He's free from material desire. Very important, he withdraws his senses. This is given how a tortoise withdraws itself. Okay, a tortoise is walking. Suppose it sees a disturbance. Immediately, what the tortoise does, it withdraws its arms, its limbs into its shell, and it just sits down there like a rock. So if there's a predator which is coming, the predator thinks that it's just a piece of stone or something and goes away. So just like a tortoise withdraws its senses or withdraws its limbs within itself, the sthita-prajna is a person who is able to withdraw his senses within himself, away from matter. That ability, without feeling mentally disturbed, feeling mentally very comfortable, very calm, the sthita-prajna is able to withdraw himself. The word vidheyatma is used. Vidheyatma means a person who has their senses under control and is able to engage his senses in the sense objects in a very controlled manner, in a regulated manner. If I have to do something, then I'll do only as much as required to do that thing properly, nothing more. Okay. So whether it's eating or engaging in some recreation or even sexual enjoyment in a controlled and regulated manner, rejects the sense desires coming in the mind. So all the points, you see, the idea of pulling away from the sense objects is reinforced in the Gita again and again and again. And in the second chapter and the third chapter, this point comes many, many times. Senses are under control and the mind is absorbed in Sri Bhagavan. And because of all this, he is not disturbed in undesirable situations and not excited by desirable situations. And this mentality frees the person from fear. There's no more fear. Fear goes away. Fear of even what we would normally be afraid of. This can happen, that can happen. Somebody may attack me. Somebody will do politics against me. All that kind of fear, anger against people. Sometimes even without anything happening, we become angry, right? We just visualize that, okay, tomorrow morning when I go meet him, he was going to speak like this. So imagining that this person is going to speak like that to me tomorrow, we start becoming angry within ourselves and we go break something. So this anger, this kind of anger, even when somebody does something to us, the sthita-prajna is able to be away from. A mind that is free from both attachment and hatred. No possessiveness, because see, this lack of possessiveness does not mean the person has become numb in their minds. Becoming free from sense objects, the desire to enjoy the sense objects, is not a state of mental numbness. Rather, it's a state of universal awareness. It's a state of consciousness where you understand that everything belongs collectively to everybody. Nothing belongs to anyone individually, but everything belongs to everyone collectively. Because we are the Atma. As the Atma, we are a part of Sri Bhagavan, and everything belongs to Bhagavan. By that logic, because I'm a part of Bhagavan, Bhagavan belongs to me, I belong to Bhagavan, and everything belongs to Bhagavan. So therefore, everything belongs to all of us together. Nothing belongs to me individually. So possessiveness is something where I think that it belongs to me, it is mine. My son, this is my son, he belongs to me, he's my property. Right? This is my car, this car belongs to me, this house belongs to me. But when you start seeing that actually nothing belongs to me, nothing belonged to me, I came into this world without anything, I'm going to leave this world without anything. In between, I'm here for some time in this body. So nothing ever belongs to me. Everything belongs collectively to everybody. And therefore, by that logic, actually, in some sense, everything belongs to me. So possessiveness is that universal consciousness. And that gives a lack of possessiveness, sorry. Lack of possessiveness is that universal consciousness. And that gives happiness, that I am complete. So for a sthita-prajna, when this mentality has developed sufficiently, it says that the experiences of misery are completely destroyed. There's no more misery. So it's no longer alternating misery with happiness. It's continuous happiness. And one's intelligence, you can say combined with intelligence, is what we call wisdom or morality, the sense of discrimination, right and wrong, good and bad, how to do something, how not to do something. That's perfectly situated. Sthita-prajna, that's the meaning of sthita-prajna. And so that's the prajna experiences complete contentment within himself, experiences deep inner happiness. So all these points I'm making, they're all from different shlokas. Okay, I put the shloka number there. And this very beautiful shloka in the third chapter, 17th shloka, it says, Yastu atmarati syat, Yastu atmarati syat, atmatriptascha manavaha, atmanyeva santushtaha, tasya karyam na vidyate. He says, one who experiences atmarati means deep attachment to himself, the self, the atma. And I say himself, not in the sense of material selfishness, but in the sense of spiritual realization. Understanding that I am the atma, that attachment. Attachment, deep attachment to the self, atmarati. Atma-tripti, contentment in the self. I have everything that I need. Even if I don't get anything in this world, I will not feel anything is missing. There's nothing lacking for me. Deep contentment within the self. Atma-tripti, atmanyevacha santushtaha. And not only contentment, but happiness. So much happiness in realizing the truth, seeing the reality as it is. Complete santushti, happiness in the self. Tasya karyam na vidyate. He is free from all obligation to do work. Okay, so Karma Yoga begins by saying that you are bound to do your duty. You're obliged to do your duty. You have to do your duty. It starts out like that. But what is the conclusion? The conclusion is when you reach this stage, you're no longer obliged to do your duty. You're free from your obligation to do your duty. So doing Karma Yoga sincerely, by following that obligation, frees you from the obligation to do your duty. You become eligible to leave your duties and then go and sit and meditate. What Arjuna wants to do in the beginning of the Kurukshetra war, I want to leave this, I'll go and live like a beggar. That state comes only after you do your duty for a sufficiently long period of time with this mentality, right? So this is sthita-prajnata. And this is a beautiful story to help us to appreciate this a little better. This is from a poem. It's from the Western world. In fact, the earlier story also was from the Western world. So there's this king. And this king, he's, again, he's well off. He's got nothing lacking in him. But he feels that he's not well. He's sick. Something in him which makes him think that I'm sick. I'm diseased. There's some disease in me. So he sends for his best doctor. Says, Doctor, I'm sick. Please examine me and give me a cure. The doctor examines him and he says, King, I examined you thoroughly, but I am not able to identify any disease that's known to me in you. So I don't know what exactly is wrong with you. The king becomes angry with him and he says, you fool, you can't make out what is wrong with me. You're not qualified to be a doctor. So he chops off his head. Then another doctor comes. And the same thing happens. The doctor is not able to identify what exactly is wrong with the king, chops off his head. And finally, after a number of doctors have gone like this, two doctors come. One of them is a very poor man. He has studied something somewhere, but he's got a lot of common sense. And the other guy is a doctor who is well off, is well known, and they come together. And they both examine the doctor together. Sorry, I beg your pardon. They both examine the king together. And they sort of figure out what is wrong with this guy. So the first doctor again says the same thing. The rich guy, the well-off, the educated doctor, he says the same thing, and the king becomes very angry with him. But before the king can kill him, the second doctor, who is the poor man who's got just pure common sense, he tells the doctor, "Doctor, we have identified your disease. We know what it is. We don't know how to explain it to you, but we know how to cure it. We'll give you the cure. The cure is very simple. We want you to sleep one night wearing the shirt of a man who is happy, who's fully happy and contented." So the king is surprised. He has never heard a cure like this. But since it's such a simple cure, I will try it. And if it doesn't work, I'll chop off both your heads. This is good. So he tells his soldiers, just go there and find a happy guy and bring that guy's shirt to me. So the soldiers go, okay, this is simple. They go out of the palace and they meet the first guy and they say, look, you're a happy person, no? Me? No, not at all. I've got so many anxieties. My daughter is not married. I have a loan to repay. Okay, they go to the next guy and he also says something similar. And they go person after person after person, and they realize that it's not so easy to find a happy guy. Everybody has some problem or the other in this world. So after days of searching, they find one guy. And he's like sitting somewhere. He's rolling. I mean, he's on a mountainside, some open mountains in the countryside. And he's going up that mountain, rolling down, again walking up, rolling down, laughing. He seems to be very happy. A lot of happiness in his body, face. So then they go to him, say that you seem to be very happy. They're very cautious because they're expecting that he will also say, but he acknowledges. He says, yes, of course. You can see I'm very happy. In fact, I'm so happy that I don't know what to do. I'm just going up and down, jumping here and there. So then they say, we found our man. We just need one thing from you for the king. Please give us your shirt for just one night. We will return it to you the next day morning. Then the man says, look, I would have given you if I had a shirt. But it's because I don't have a shirt that I'm so happy in life. Okay, so they come back and then they realize, they tell this to the king, and then the king realizes what his folly was. It's because of his wealth. The shirt here is a metaphor for the attachments that we have. The wealth, the possessions. This is mine, that is mine, I want more. I'm not happy with what I have. My neighbor has more, so I want more. This thinking, this possessiveness mentality is the shirt. Very deep philosophy. Actually, this is in a Western poem. I was surprised that this is actually taught to us in school. This came as a poem in one of our English classes. And it's very deep. And I really understood this when I grew up, not at that point of time. At that point of time, as children, we just had fun, reciting this poem. But the point is that the king's attachments were the ones that were causing him so much misery, making him think that he was sick. And the king realizes, and then he gives up his attachments, and the poem has a happy ending with the king, becoming a happy king again. So lokasan graha is what follows in the third chapter. Once a person reaches a stage when he's no longer obliged to do that duty, then what is he supposed to do? He's supposed to leave the duty and go away. And there's a term for that called karma sannyas. Karma sannyas means giving up your karma. Whatever you're supposed to do, give it up. Like today we say retirement. Okay, it's some form of retirement in those days, where now I have done everything, whatever I'm supposed to do, I've done. And now I've reached sthita-prajn. I'm like completely content within the self. I can leave and go. Now here, Sri Bhagavan says in the third chapter, it's very beautiful. He says that, no, even then, I advise you, although you're eligible to leave and go, even though you're obliged, you're no longer obliged to do your work. You have the eligibility to leave your work and go. My advice to you is don't do that. Because real karma sannyas comes not in leaving your work, but in doing your work without attachment. You've been doing that now, keep doing that. Why? Because by that you will benefit society. You will not only benefit yourself, you will benefit society. How will you benefit society? Because looking at you, people will say that this fellow is so spiritually mature, but still he does all his duties. He is our true leader. Okay, so Sri Bhagavan gives the example. This is the third chapter in all these shlokas, from the 20th shloka to the 26th shloka. I'll very quickly explain them to you. He says, Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astitaha janakadaya lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. He gives the example of King Janaka of Mithila, father of Mother Sita, Sita Ma's father. So he says King Janaka was a karma yogi. He did all his karma. He was a sthita-prajn. And he continuously was in the stage of Atmarati. He was experiencing Atma Santushti. He was fully established, sthita-prajna. He had no obligation to do his duty. He could have left his kingdom and gone, but he didn't do that. He stayed there. He continued to be a king and executed his duties. And like him, so many other kings, they continue to do their duty. Okay, yad yad acharati sreshta. This is a very, very important shloka in the Bhagavad-Gita, 3.21. Yad yad acharati sreshta tattadevetaro janah sa yat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Whatever the great people do, yad yad acharati sreshta. Sreshta means a great person, a person who's considered great in society, a celebrity or a leader. Okay, it could be a political leader, it could be a film actor, today's society, it could be a sportsman who is a celebrity, who's known and respected by people. Whatever that person does, tattadeva itaro janah. The other people just follow that person. Yad yad acharati sreshtaha tattadevetaro janah. Whatever great people do, the other people follow that person. Okay, so we see so many groups following respective leaders, right? They want to be like that leader. They cite that leader's name. They tell he was like this. He used to eat like this. He used to sleep like this. His lifestyle was like this. He liked this. He did not like this. So their life choices are based on their leader's choices. How the leader lived, they also want to live like that because the leader is inspirational, right? He inspires them. Sayat pramanam kurute. Sayat pramanam kurute. What that person considers as truth. Sayat pramanam kurute. What that person accepts, what that person does not accept as truth, as not truth, as false. Lokastad anuvartate. People follow that, right? And therefore you, Arjuna, because you are now in this situation as a Kshatriya, you're born in a very regal family. You're a leader. People look at you like a leader. Whatever you do, they will follow. So even if you have become spiritually very advanced, you've realized the self, you've realized happiness in the self, even then don't take karma sannyas. Even then, if there is the next dharma yuddha which comes, be prepared for that also. Fight that also. Right? And then Sri Bhagavan gives his own example. In the next three shlokas, he says, Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varte evacha karmani. He says, look at me, Sri Bhagavan says. I, being the Supreme Being, that's the whole revelation in the Gita, I don't have any obligation to do anything. Maybe I can say that you are a Jivatma, you should do. But look at me, I am the Paramatma. Everything belongs to me. All these things are defined by me, designed by me. Everything is my possession. But still, even though I am in this position, there's nothing for me to get. I still do all my duties. Why? Because yadyaham yadi hyaham na varteyam jatu karmanyatandritaha mama vartmanu vartante manushyav partha sarvashaha. Because if I say that I am Bhagavan and leave my work and go away, or abstain from my work and just make other people do work, I don't do my duty, then other people who are watching this will want to imitate me, will want to try to act like me. So tomorrow people will pop up and say, I am Bhagavan. And they will start doing things which are harmful to society. That will harm society. Utsideyur rime lokaha nakuryam karma chedaham Sankarasya cha kartasyam upahanyamimah prajaha. So he goes even further. He says that because of this, what will happen when people stop doing their duties, dharma will fall apart. And when dharma falls apart, there will be mixed population. Okay, so in the concept of the varnashrama system, people marry within their varna, right? And the population that's born is pure in varna. A brahmana will marry a brahmana, kshatriya will marry a kshatriya, vaishya will marry vaishya, and so on. So that is because through that, the knowledge systems, the culture gets preserved in that manner. It's not about being superior, inferior. It's about preserving dharma, right? And dharma is best preserved when the varna remains pure. That's the understanding. So he says, if I abstain from my duty because I am Bhagavan, I tell everybody, look, I am Bhagavan, I don't have to do anything. People will start imitating me. Somewhere or the other, people will start doing this and dharma will fall apart. Okay, and that goes against my objective. I've come here because I want to establish dharma. Dharma samstapanarthaya. Saktaha karmanyad avidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvams tatha saktaha chikirshuh lokasangraham. Just like ordinary people, they do their duty with attachment. They do with asakti. They are saktaha. In the same way, mature people should do their duty without attachment, with detachment. Na buddhibhedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. A learned person, a wise person, should do their duty with detachment in order to set an example for others who are doing it with attachment. But because they are doing their duty, they will elevate themselves over time. At one day, they will also learn that they should also do with detachment. Spiritual awakening will happen to them in course of time. But right now, they are not spiritually awakened. If you leave your duty and go because you are spiritually awakened, you will destroy them. They will look at you, they will imitate you, and they will be destroyed. So this is the concept of lokasangraha, concern for others, even though I am not obliged to have that concern. Having that concern, that's compassion. See, dharma is based on this quality of compassion. So this is the beauty of karma yoga and the concept of lokasangraha, sthita-prajn. Karma yoga, sthita-prajn, and lokasangraha, they come together. And Sri Bhagavan explains all this. And in reviewing the first 3 chapters, we have touched upon these concepts. And there's another beautiful story of how a leader is someone who sets an example for others without making a show of it, without claiming the credit for doing that. So this is from the Hitopadesha, where the story begins with a group of pigeons. Okay, the Hitopadesha is a very beautiful work. It's like Panchatantra. Panchatantra and Hitopadesha are very similar works, written by 2 scholars, Vishnu Sharma and Narayana Pandit, several hundreds of years ago. And they use animal characters. They use animal characters to actually depict adults. It's not actually, we think that Panchatantra is for children. Panchatantra is not for children. So the metaphor of the child is used in the Panchatantra itself. There's a king who's got 4 children and the children are not studying. So the king employs somebody and that Pandit comes and says, I will teach them. He starts telling stories. So common understanding in society is these books are for small children. You tell the story of a jackal falling into a tub, tell the story of some lion and some camel and some donkey and so on. So it's not for children at all. It's actually for us. There's a lot of meaning for us in this. So there's this beautiful story where pigeons are flying in the sky and like any pigeons, so they're looking for food. They're hungry and there's a whole group. Pigeons go as a flock, right? We see pigeons as flocks. So in this flock, they're looking eagerly for food and they're flying over a forest. And all of a sudden, they spot in a clearing in the forest a nice pile of rice. There's rice spread out. A lot of rice is spread out in that clearing. And immediately they get excited. They get excited and they all start chirping and they say, look, 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 there's some rice for us. There's rice for us. Let's all go and have it. We are hungry. Let's go and eat that. Okay. And that time, the leader of the flock, who is an elderly pigeon, very wise elderly pigeon, so he says, wait a minute. Before you descend, please hold on. I'm not sure that it is safe to go there. Because just think, this is a forest. It's a remote forest we are flying over. Who would come here and put some rice like this? If there were some houses nearby and there was rice lying there, it would make some sense. But just trees around, just dense forest, a small clearing in the forest, and there's rice here. It doesn't look like it's rice which has naturally come there. Something looks suspicious to me. Let's not go there. Let's just keep flying ahead, and some village will come, we will find our food. Just be patient. See, all the other pigeons who are flying with that leader, they think, yeah, it must be true. Because after all, he's a wise person. He's gone through a lot of, a lot of experience in life. So he must be having something in what he's saying. There must be something in what he says. But there's one young pigeon there. So he starts doing politics. He says, no, I don't agree with you. I disagree with you. In my perspective, we should go now and have it. He starts fighting. And slowly, he starts converting some of the other pigeons. He starts influencing them. Look, this guy has got an agenda. He wants to take us somewhere because he likes something else. He doesn't want rice. So he's making us all fly there. Let them go. Let's go and have it. So as they do this, there's some dissension happening in the group. Then the leader says, okay, if all of you want, then I will also come. I will not leave you and go. I will not abandon you. So they all fly down and they all sit down. There's a lot of rice. They're very happy. So they eat that rice and they are filled. Ah, so nice. And then suddenly somebody in the pigeons points out, look, some man is coming there. So they see a hunter. The hunter has actually laid out the rice for them. So immediately they start flapping their wings. You see pigeons, if you walk in a group of pigeons, what happens? Immediately the whole flock goes up. So they start flapping their wings and they try to go up, but they're not able to go up. They look down, they find that their feet are all snared in a net. There's a very nice net, strong net below the rice. So as they start flapping their wings to go up, the net becomes visible. And they realize that they have been trapped. And the hunter is coming towards them. So now they don't know what to do. They realize that they have been trapped. So quickly, the leader, he does not say that, okay, I told you. What would normally be said? I told you, no? Now you did this. I am not. Don't blame me. No, the leader takes responsibility. He says, I have an idea. Just do what I say now. He says, all of us, when I say 1, 2, 3, all of us will flap our wings at the same time, synchronously, and we will lift this net with us. And we'll go into the sky. The hunter cannot catch us. So they said, yes. Now they have to do it because the hunter is almost there. He's about to catch them. So immediately they flap their wings together and they all rise up. Okay, and this shows the power. You see, symbolically, the story conveys to us how, dissension happens, politics happen, wisdom is ignored, and how collective effort can solve a problem very quickly. So they collectively flap their wings and then they go up into the sky. And after they have gone up sufficiently high, they ask the leader, now please tell us what should we do? We will follow whatever you say. Now the net is still entangled in our feet. We are safe from the hunter, but what do we do about this net? We can't now fly normally with this. So the leader says, don't worry, I've already thought of a solution. I have a friend, a mouse. And this mouse is got very sharp teeth. And his teeth are so good that he is an expert in biting and chopping and breaking these nets. So we'll straight go to him and he will help us and free us all. So then the story goes that they fly to the place, again in some other part of the forest where this mouse is living. They all descend there and they call out to the mouse and there's a conversation between them. It's very interesting where this person, this leader starts calling out to the mouse, and then he hears the mouse's voice. He says, I have come. And the mouse is initially suspicious. The mouse thinks that maybe it could be a trap. Some enemy has come to eat me up, telling the name of my friend. Then in the conversation, they discuss something, and then the leader gives him assurance that it's me only. It's not somebody in disguise. So the mouse comes out, and then the mouse frees them all. So this is a beautiful story which shows how the concept of lokasan, even though a person is wise, the leader could have actually, left them and gone. The wise leader, the pigeon, could have just said, okay, those who want to come with me, let them all go, and whatever happens, let it happen to them. But he doesn't do that. He takes responsibility, goes with them. And that is why the Gita is actually filled with immense, import for leaders. It's very inspirational. It says that, true knowledge comes from inside, from within the Atma. Each of us is an Atma, and within us that pure knowledge exists. If we discover ourselves, automatically that knowledge will reveal itself and help us to act sensibly in this world. So leadership theory should be based on this. We should develop theory which is based on this knowledge, and it will inspire people. So with this, I will stop for today. We've completed our review of the first 3 chapters, and in the next session, probably next 1 or 2 sessions, we will review the 4th to 6th chapters, the next 3 chapters, and then the 7th to 9th chapters before we go to the 10th chapter. I'll stop with this, and if you have any questions, comments, etc., please let me know. Today, I've not brought that Bluetooth mic. Instead, another solution has been worked out. I have I've logged into the Zoom call through my mobile. So if you have, I'll just pass this phone to you, and I'll unmute you. Might get an echo. We'll just see if it echoes. You can ask me some. Those online, are you getting an echo?
No, sir, not so far.
It's clear.
As of now, no echo, sir. If somebody speaks over there, then we'll realize, sir.
Okay. And if you people have any questions, please let us know. Yeah. Apeksha, yeah.
Sir, in the 4 orders of the society, Brahman.
So you can mute from there.
I'll mute from here. If I mute from here, that will probably go away. Wait 1 second.
Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras.
Now speak something, Apeksha.
Where are the doctors, artists, singers, dancers? In which ashram are they situated?
Well, did you hear her question? Those online, could you hear? I just want to see if the audio is working.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we could hear her.
Oh, we can't hear their answer. Okay.
Yes, sir, we could hear her, sir. She asked about the artist and where are those artists, in which area do they fall among Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra,
Right.
and Vaishya.
Okay, yeah. So in my understanding, at least the Vaishya, the Vaidyas, the doctors are generally the Brahmins. The Brahmins, a lot of them are doctors. A lot of Vaidyas are Brahmins. This is something I know, but the musicians, the singers, musicians emerge from, I think, different Varnas. I've seen Brahmin musicians, but musicians from other Varnas as well. Dancers, well, professional dancers, I don't know, but I think they are spread over communities. I mean, I don't really know.
If we have to place them in any one of these 4 varnas.
In my understanding, these are just
Can I
like dance.
attempt this question, sir? Nilesh?
Yeah, please. You have something to say, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So there was a class in Tata Steel, maybe 7-8 years ago. I attended a class, and the teacher talked about this. He said that how many number of people you are serving at a time is also something which was which was deciding what you are doing. So every person, like Brahman, was supposed to handle all students of different varna, and was communicating one to many. Similarly, a shopkeeper or a Vaishya was also serving one to many, but one at a time. And service provider, all the service provider, including music or painting and others, are actually serving one to one at a time. So
Yeah.
in my understanding, all the service providers, maybe it is a cobbler or a barber or a painter or anyone who is trying to please one person at a time, falls under Shudra.
Okay. Okay. But I think her question was about whether these skills are directly mapped onto any particular varna. In my understanding, they are not mapped to a varna. They are skills that anybody can develop. I don't think it is like a musician should belong to one particular varna, like a Brahmana or a Shudra or something like that. I think it's a skill that someone who's trained in that skill can develop based on their past karma and so on. In the duties of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra given in the Gita, none of these skills are mentioned.
Yeah, it is according to the qualities.
Yeah.
Qualities.
Yeah. Yeah. So these kind of specific skills like art, music, dance, painting, etc., I think are spread across the varnas. Different people, even avarniyas, tribals.
He's dedicating his dance for the Lord.
Hmm.
Then that dancer can fall in the category of a Brahmin.
No. Brahmana doesn't become like that. In the Varnashrama system, a Brahmana is born as a Brahmana. Is born to Brahmana parents. Brahmana is one who is born to Brahmana parents. A Kshatriya is one who is born to Kshatriya parents. And that is how the Varna is maintained. That's the concept of Varna Sankara, is when you mix, when a marriage between a Brahmana and a Kshatriya happens and a child is born. It's called Varna Sankara, the mixed Varna. Then culture falls apart.
It is according to qualities.
Qualities determine birth.
He goes through all he goes through the entire process.
Yes.
Obtaining the similarly, unless and until he acquires all the qualities of a Brahman.
So how the way to understand that is that the son, correct, according to qualities, but the qualities are developed when one is born to Brahmana parents, because first of all, why does one get a Brahmana janma or a Kshatriya janma? It's because of their past karma, because they have the guna already in them. According to the guna, they are given the janma, and because they are born in people who are already having that guna in them, that child develops that guna. The child has to, the child should. Yeah, correct. If a child does not practice, then it is no longer, it is still called a Brahmana by social label. Its social label is still that of a Brahmana, although it is not respect worthy. It is not worthy of the respect of a Brahmana. No doubt about that. Similarly, if somebody, let's say somebody in a Shudra Varna has the qualities of a Brahmana, the label of a Shudra still remains with the person, but the person is worthy of the respect of a Brahman. The person is respected like a Brahmana. We see many saints like that, who were born in lower Varnas, but because they had qualities which are very, very elevated, they are respected like Brahmanas. But they don't become Brahmanas. They don't do the duty of a Brahmana. The duty of a Brahmana is given to that social class. So you should not mix up two things. One is the respect worthiness. The second is the duties, the actual duties. Right? A Brahmana, becoming a Brahmana is not like becoming a doctor, not like getting educational degree. That Upanayan is done only for the person who is born in a Brahmana Varna, Kshatriya Varna or Vaishya Varna. 3 Varnas have Upanayanam. They are given.
के time पे
हाँ
सर दीक्षा के टाइम पे तो शायद
हाँ, दीक्षा के टाइम पे the Gayatri is given to Brahmanas. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas get 2 other mantras, not the Gayatri. There are 3 different mantras, but all 3 of them are called Dvijas. Dvija means they get the Upanayana, they get the Janevu, and then they have to do Sandhya Vandan 3 times a day, etc. Right? There are different procedures associated with that. But that's given only to people who are born in those Varnas. It is not given to anybody who I want to go and get this. It's not like that. Now you can become a Brahmana. That is not the procedure. That is not the Shastric procedure. You see Hari Bhakti Vilas also. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami mentions that the role of a guru is played by one who is a Brahmana, who is born as a Brahmana. Brahmana birth is also important there. The other point also is correct, that if somebody who is born as a Brahmana does not have the qualities of a Brahmana, like we see many people today like that, right? Then they are not worthy of the respect of a Brahmana, and we should not go to them for knowledge. That is also true. At the same time, it is not like the example of becoming a doctor. Like somebody, I want to become a lawyer, so I go to a law college and apply and I get admitted and I learn for 5 years and I become a lawyer. That's not the way you become a Brahmana. You don't become a Brahmana like that. That anybody randomly in society, any random person. Not japa can be, see, Harinam japa can be done by anybody. It is Harinam, bhakti is not varna item. Bhakti is beyond the varnas. Just because somebody does bhakti, they don't become Brahmana. They don't need to become. They are beyond that. Bhakti is avarniya, means it is beyond varna. Bhakti is nirgunatmaka. The 4 varnas are gunatmaka. The Brahmana is sattva. The Kshatriya is rajas plus sattva. The Vaishya is rajas. And the Shudra is tamas. Or Vaishya is rajas plus tamas. And the Shudra is tamas, right? These 4 gunas mix, and the 4 gunas, the activities and the roles they play are considered to be under the influence of these gunas. And they're in accordance with these gunas. But bhakti is nirgunatmaka. So the understanding that somebody does japa for some time, so he becomes sattvic. And because he has become sattvic, now he is a Brahmana. He can be given Brahmana Diksha. That's a wrong understanding. That is not correct understanding. That's not supported by the Gaudiya Shastra. You follow?
Oh, I see. So
Or any Shastra, not only
they are not given the Upanayana, is my understanding wrong?
Unless only if they are born in one of these Varnas. It's a part of the Varna.
So
See, giving Upanayana, Janevu,
they are born
Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, 3 Varnas. 3 Varnas have Upanayana Samskar. See, when a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya bring up their children, they are brought to that level. Just like if you join an MBA program in XLRI, in 2 years you are brought to a level, whether you like it or not. Right? At the end of 2 years, you will get your MBA and go. You would have learned something. So some people would have learned it better in a batch of MBA students. Some people have learned it better. Some people have learned it less. But all of them are called MBAs at the end of it, right? And they're all sent out. There may be a rare case once in a few years who doesn't qualify and he's asked to repeat 1 year. But normally it doesn't happen. Similarly, somebody born in a Brahmana family, from the moment they are born, they undergo all the samskaras, right? Beginning with the Garbhadana samskar before itself, and then the Namakarana samskar, the Chaula samskar, the Upanayan samskar. So all of these keep happening. So by virtue of the system takes care of making them qualified. It's not that the child has to now start doing Harinam Japa and then it develops qualities and somebody tests them, you got a quality or not, then I'll now give you Japa, I'll give you the Diksha. It's not like that. It doesn't work that way. And by doing Bhakti, so that's the other, Bhakti is a different system altogether. If you read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu properly, you'll understand that. Bhakti is beyond the Varnas. Means in Bhakti, you don't bring in the identity of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Somebody does japa for some time and they develop sattva guna and then now they are Brahmana, they give them Brahmana Diksha. No way. That's not way. In Bhakti, actually, you come out of that identity as a Brahmana. When you develop Bhakti, suppose you were born in a Brahmana family and you had Brahmana Diksha earlier, you had Upanayana and all those things, and you are identifying yourself as a Brahmana. Now, when come to bhakti, you give up that identification. You are now a das of Bhagavan. The only identity you have as in bhakti is I am dasa dasa anudasa. I am the das of the das of the das of Bhagavan. That's the only identity. There's no Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So if somebody comes to bhakti and then you give him Brahmana Diksha, it doesn't make any sense. Because of bhakti, you give him Brahmana Diksha, it doesn't make any sense at all. It is not there in the Hari Bhakti Vilas to give Brahmana Diksha like that. So I know where your doubts are coming from. I'm aware of that. I'll explain to you later on because the others may not be able to relate to this doubt. Right? Yeah.
Sir,
Do you want the
I'll speak a little loud.
Yeah, speak loudly. I'll translate your question because some echo problem is coming. Yeah, sure.
So, when you see many who have like one ways they are Brahmin, but not performing the duty of Brahmin. So they have almost lost their credential to call themselves Brahmin.
Yes.
And there are several families that I have seen. Those who are Varna-wise, they are Sudra or Kshatriya or Vaishya, but they are performing more. They are like, I would say in present context, they are doing better than Brahmin in terms of following the tradition and following the rules and regulations, following the bhakti mark. So how do you see those things?
Yeah, good. So we should respect them. They are respect worthy. Correct. So those who are following dharma, regardless of which varna they belong to, are worthy of respect. They should be respected. We should be inspired by them. But we don't give them the label Brahmana. Just because they're following the dharma doesn't make them a Brahmana.
Okay.
And like you said correctly, just because somebody has the label of a Brahmana doesn't mean that they are respect worthy. They become respect worthy when they follow dharma. They follow their Brahmana dharma. You follow? So Brahmin just claiming that I am a Brahmana, so worship me, that also doesn't make any sense.
So in the context of like birth and rebirth system, if you would see such a family, a Brahmin family will degrade themselves to a like lower.
Yes, it can happen.
Lower in the next birth, but those who are not, they are following almost like a Brahmin or better than.
They can be elevated. Exactly. That's exactly what Sri Bhagavan says, no? In the chapter. They can attain moksha if they have sufficiently elevated themselves, or they can be born in a higher varna. Yeah. Somebody who is a Brahmana currently, by not following that, may be born as a Shudra in a future life because of the tamas. See, urdhvam gacchanti sattvastaha, madhye tishtanti rajasaha, jaganya gunavrittastaha, adho gacchanti tamasaha. So those who, say somebody born in a Brahmana family, but does pap, drinks alcohol, eats meat, does all kinds of things they're not supposed to do as a Brahmana. So in a future birth, he is born as a lower thing. He may be born outside the Varnashrama also, as a tribal or something, as something where person may not have access to all the facilities he had in the previous birth. So in that life, he is called a Brahmana because he is born in a Brahmana family. He is not worthy of a respect of a Brahmana. He had Upanayana, everything was given to him. He was given the opportunity to live like a Brahman, but did not perform the achara of a Brahmana. In fact, committed pap against Brahmanas. Born as a Shudra in the next life, or born as a Papa Yoni, commit pap.
Extending this, is there a sense of responsibility or something attached to a Brahmin?
Of course.
If a Brahmana is doing a sin, any sort of sin, let's say a Brahmana is doing a certain level of sin and a Sudra is doing the same level of sin, does the pap attach to the
Brahmana gets more karma for it. So his question was, if a Brahmana does a certain kind of pap and a Shudra does the same kind of pap, then do they get the same kind of punishment? No, the Brahmana gets a greater punishment for the pap they're doing than the Shudra who does the same pap. Because the Shudra is not expected to be as knowledgeable as the Brahmana. The Brahmana is supposed to have a better sense of discrimination. That responsibility is given to the Brahmana. So when more responsibility is given to you, then the punishment is also more. And we see that in modern law also, right? Modern day law also, with responsibility comes more gravity of the punishment.
Bigger gun comes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, yeah. So if a Brahmana, yeah, correct. So,
Then the
yes, society, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So today everybody is born like that. In fact, Janmana Jayate Shudraha. Yeah, does it. Yes, absolutely. So when pap is committed, having the knowledge that it is pap, when somebody commits pap, then the punishment is more than a person who does not know it is pap but ends up doing it because nobody told them it is pap. Definitely, definitely. But still there is pap, even if you don't know, just like they say, ignorance of the law is not it doesn't mean you don't get punished. It's not a reason for, pardoning. So that applies in our Shastra also. There is pap, even if somebody did not know it is pap. But yes, somebody who knew it is pap and still did it will get a bigger punishment. Yes, the Shastras say that. Puneet, you had a question, Puneet? You raised your hand.
Yes. Yes, sir. Till now, we have learned that our aspirations and desires are controlled by our five senses and the three gunas, which we have discussed in the last lecture. But I want to know what exactly is controlled by Atma. Is that only consciousness, or what exactly in humans is controlled by Atma?
The free will and the desire, Ichha. Ichha comes from the Atma. The Atma
But
can desire to do something, can desire for some outcome, can aspire for something from within. The actual action is carried out by Prakriti and Bhagavan, Daivam.
mm,
Prakriti's mechanisms which are set by Bhagavan. It's not by us. So what we desire ultimately translates into action. And because we desire in a particular manner, which leads to certain action, we get the reaction for that. And that is the reason why it is said that once we become free from desire for enjoyment, we do things only accordance with dharma, because it is dharma. Then we become free from both punya and papa. There is neither punya nor papa for such a person. There is no reaction anymore. It is for that reason.
So adding to his question, when you are saying that the desire comes, so if the desire comes from Atma, so all the desire or everything that we are thinking, mostly we revert it to the man that we have. So is man part of Atma or something like different?
Man is a material, manas. He's asking the question, is the mind, manas, a part of the Atma or is it something else? The answer is that it's one of the material elements, the way classification of matter is done. It's like in modern chemistry, we have the periodic table, right? Some 100 odd elements are classified in some tabular form, from number 1 to number 100 and something, 120 or something. It's reached some number now. In the same way, in our Vedantic philosophy, in all the Indian philosophical systems like Nyaya, Sankhya, Vedanta, matter is classified in some particular manner. And the most common elements in all the classifications is this Prakriti. Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhi, Revacha. So Manaha is one of them, one of the elements. And why the point is, even though desire comes from the Atma, the desire is seen in the mind. Just like we say that, for example, the data is inside the CPU or inside the memory of this computer, right? The CPU is one element of this computer. The memory, the place where memory exists is another place in the computer. But where do I see that? Where do I see that data? I see it on the screen. I can't see the memory card. I see the screen. So in the same way, the mind is like a monitor, a screen where the thoughts become visible. Our own thoughts, which are part of us, they become visible in this.
So if someone is like finding pleasure in gaining knowledge or learning new skills, so will that be considered sense indulgence?
By default, yes. By default, the way we live today, we seek pleasure in the objects of the senses. For example, we may have a desire to learn music. Why? Because it's so pleasing to hear. It's so enjoyable to hear my own singing. It's so it fulfills my ego to think that I am a musician. I can sing nicely. And extending that, the appreciation I get from others when I sing well, right? Or even extending it further, I probably can make a career out of singing. I can earn money and get fame in society as a singer. So I have different levels of indulgence. So the most basic level, I learn singing because I like singing and I hear it. So by definition, yes, because it's ultimately pleasure of the pleasure acquired through the senses of a sense object called sound. The sound is giving me that pleasure. Okay, so whether it's right or wrong to do that, now by default, you can say that there are so many activities we do which are morally fine in normal society. By default, they are fine. I mean, they don't harm anybody. In fact, they give pleasure to others. Now, this is where the concept of ahankara comes, that, my identification with myself as so and so, like I am Dhiraj, I am Ajit, I am Anjana. So this kind of identification, when that identification is driving this activity, seeking this pleasure, then we get more entangled in Maya, in matter. But if our identification is that, no, I'm actually a Jivatma, I belong to Bhagavan, I'm just a small amsha of Bhagavan. So if I'm learning music, then my inspiration should come from the understanding that, yeah, this Vidya that I'm getting now, I will use it in Bhagavan's service. I will use it to do paropakar because Bhagavan will be pleased. So when we are able to connect the thought to our real identity as Jivatma and as an amsha of Bhagavan, when that is driving our actions, that's driving our decisions, then even though we feel pleasure in music, our sense, our experience of pleasure from music will not go away. But what is driving that activity itself is now different. And that frees us because it helps us to build an attachment to something else. We are no longer attached to this. We're attached to Bhagavan, our own self, our true identity. Are you seeing the difference between the two? So when we say that you detach from sense objects, it is not a question of numbing ourselves. The experience of the sense objects remains the same, or probably actually it becomes even better. For example, the gulab jamun for a self-realized person may taste even better than the gulab jamun for a person who's not self-realized. That's my theory, because his consciousness is even better. The spark in him is even better. He's able to sense things better than the person who is not conscious, self-conscious, or self-realized. Okay, whatever it is, even if it's not better, at least it's the same. So senses don't become numb. That's another misconception sometimes people develop.
But the focus becomes
Yes, the attachment becomes something else. Instead of being attached to that thing which is material, you're attached to Bhagavan and to yourself, your Jivatma, your nature as the Jivatma. With, yes, and you offer. And how do you offer? You offer it through consciousness. Mayi sanyasa. He says, Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa, means through consciousness. Through one's consciousness, one makes the offering. So it's not about physical offering. It's not that you go to Bhagavan physically, because you can't see him anyway. So that's not possible. You can't go and say, just like if you want to offer me something, you will come to me. Or if I want to offer you something, I can come to you physically and give it to you. With Bhagavan, we cannot do that. So he says, Adhyatma Chetasa, through our consciousness, inner consciousness. Through that, we make the offering. So when the result comes, we fully recognize that, okay, this came because Bhagavan gave it to me. It came from him and it belongs to him. I acknowledge that. In my mind, I fully acknowledge that. And when we do that, then that sthita-prajnata develops, that steadiness develops in the mind. Right. Exactly. So then we realized that that learning was revealed to me by Bhagavan from inside. That knowledge has come to me. Yeah. Nimitta, the nimitta, yes. I'm just a nimitta in the process. Yeah. So this realization frees us from all kinds of stress, anxiety. In fact, those who are talking about relieving themselves from stress, we have a counselor here, right? We have a lady who's counseling us, and a lot of students go to her. Faculty members also go to her. This is a solution. Become aware of Bhagavan's existence, become aware of our own existence as the Atma, and do our duty sincerely for his pleasure. Do it for his pleasure. All stress will go away. Simple solution, actually.
Speaking of music, there is a Bhagavad which like very beautifully captures this thought. And it is eventually for Bhagwan Shri Krishna only. That मेरा काम हो रहा है. There's a bhajan. मेरा आपकी कृपा से. Have you heard?
मेरा सब काम करते हो सब तुम करने
Right.
पर नाम मेरा हो रहा है.
I see. Okay.
So it's you are the doer, and my things are getting done, and it's going back to you, coming from
We
you.
had
I have allowed myself to be an instrument in doing it. Yeah. Anybody online has anything to ask? Online participants? Okay, so we will close for today then. And we will continue to discuss offline also. We can meet and discuss if you like. I'll chant the Antya Mangalam and we can stop. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobhramanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Om Tad Vishno of Paramam Padagum Sada Pashyanti Surayah Divi Vachakshuratatam Tadvipraso Vipanyavo Jagruvagum Sassamindhate Vishnor Paramam Padam Paryaaptya Anantarayaya Sarvastamoti-ratra Uttamamaharbhavati Sarvasyaptyai Sarvasya Jityai Sarvameva Tena Apnoti Sarvam Jayati Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Dhanyavadaha Punarmilamaha Agrima Bhanuvasare Punarmilamaha Dhanyavadaha. Thank you all for coming.